Good morning and welcome to TakeASide. I'm Jacob Polachek, and today we'll be running through a number of topics in the NBA, NFL, and college football. Be sure to voice your opinion on sided.co and tag us on Twitter at TakeASideKU. For our first debate, I'm here with Caroline McCrae and Marina Saber, here to discuss our NFL predictions on the awards through Week 8. Caroline, what are your thoughts?
All right, so we're 8 weeks in. My front runner for MVP right now is Russell Wilson. I just think he's had a great year.
Yeah. He's
had over 2,000 yards, 17 touchdowns, and only one interception. The Seahawks are 6-2. I think he's the best. I think he's the most valuable player right now in the NFL.
Yeah, and he's one of those that's been around for a while, so it's not that it's surprising to see him at the front of the MVP race, but you know, when it's led by a lot of young guys like Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, who's my take, and Lamar Jackson, and then to see, you know, Russell Wilson, and then you have Aaron Rodgers in there too. It's kind of cool to see the range of talent that you have that are.
I kind of think other people are thinking Rodgers and Mahomes. I feel like Mahomes isn't going to win it again just because of his injuries.
I feel like player, and he's not actually playing.
Yeah, exactly. And his numbers are obviously not going to be as good as Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers because he's, you know, going to sit out a few games, hopefully just a few. But I don't know. I don't think Rodgers has had the year that. I mean, they're 7-1. They're really good.
Right.
But still, I don't know. I feel like Russell Wilson is my take.
Yeah, I mean, and a good take at that. A lot of people agree with you there, I'm sure. I'm going to go with Deshaun Watson. And I know the Texans are not performing as well as the Seahawks. They're doing very well on the season. But, I mean, yesterday's game, Watson throws touchdown pass at the tail end of the fourth quarter after being kicked in the eye. After the play, he stays on the field for a little bit. He gets off. He's smiling. And it honestly could go down as one of the best plays of the 2019 season because it was incredible to watch. And it just shows, I think, his drive and his complete candidacy for the MVP award. And he's rightfully up there. He's on pace to throw for 4,500 yards, to rush for almost 500. And Texans are only a half game back from the Colts in the AFC South. So I think as a team, they're doing really well. And I think Deshaun Watson has definitely made an obvious case to be a front runner for the MVP award.
Yeah, I like Deshaun Watson too. They had a great game they've had some upsets against the Chiefs, and he's played really well, and he's led the team to be better than I thought that they would be this year.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year. I'm going to go with Khalil Mack. He won the award a few years ago, and I think he's had a good season so far. The Bears' offense is pretty bad, and he's leading that defense, which is keeping them in games.
Right.
He's had 24 solo tackles, 5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, which is a big deal. He's getting the ball back to the offense for the Bears, and I think he's going to take home the Defensive Player of the Year award.
Yeah, my pick is about as predictable as it can come, but I'm going to take Aaron Donald. I don't know what to argue that other than he's just the best. He is so dominant defensively. He's so good. And I think he's one of the front runners next to Christian McCaffrey for an MVP award that's not a quarterback, because that's typically, I mean, you and I both picked quarterbacks for that, but if you're looking at players who are in contention for that, I think Aaron Donald is.
That would be a big deal.
Right
I don't remember the last time a defensive player won MVP.
Exactly. And I think Aaron Donald, if anyone is on pace to do it, it could be him. You know, he's a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner, could go for a third, and I don't know. He's just awesome. He's so good. He really, there's nothing else to say other than he's just amazing.
He does lead the Rams defense, and they're pretty good. All right, Offensive Player of the Year. I think I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
Some people are saying that because Cam Newton's out and Kyle Allen's in, and they're giving him the ball more. But I think when Cam Newton comes back, he's going to keep going. He has over 700 yards, 8 touchdowns. He averages 5 yards per carry. He's leading the Panthers offense, and I think he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, I think week 5, it was McCaffrey was responsible for almost 48% of their total offense, which is, I mean, an insane statistic right there. And he has proven his ability time and time again to just break through, find the hole, find his rushing game, and he is carrying that team. He's done so well. I mean, what else can you say? It's just that obvious. For my Offensive Player of the Year, I'm going to go with another quarterback, as predictable as that is. I think Lamar Jackson has had an exceptional season. He has had 1,600 passing yards, thrown for 11 touchdowns. The Ravens are 5-2 right now, and he is so fun to watch.
He's really
watching
fun to
him
watch.
play, even when he played the Cardinals however many weeks ago, and obviously it's not fun to see my team get absolutely destroyed like that, but it is so fun to watch him work. He's had some exceptional games, and I think if not an MVP candidate, an easy candidate for Offensive Player of the
I know
Year.
this is a debate show, but I'm going to agree with you on that one too. I really like Lamar Jackson too, and I think he's the whole Ravens. He's going to be their quarterback for a long time. He's so fun to watch, and he runs the ball. He can do everything.
He really can.
He's a great athlete. So I do agree with you on that, but I still like my Christian McCaffrey.
I do. I like Christian McCaffrey too. I think it's definitely a wide open race.
It'll be interesting to see the rest of the season though, because obviously we're only 8 weeks in. There's still a lot of the season left, so
Right.
we'll see how things change.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to take a break, and Max and Riley are going to talk about college football when we come back.
In America, littering is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. In the U.S. alone, 250 million pieces of trash are littered each year, costing $11.5 billion in cleanup. Of that number, 40% of the trash comes from motorists on highways. We are slowly destroying our natural resources by littering so much as a society. Next time you see trash on the ground, do your part and throw it away.
All right, I'm Riley Ward, and I'm here with Max, and today we're going to be talking about the most dangerous college football team. Now, Max, what's your take on this one?
Well, college football has been really entertaining this year. And with Oklahoma losing, I would have said Oklahoma, but Oklahoma lost to Kansas State, and so I think their season's done with, or at least their college football playoff hopes are done with. But I think Ohio State is the best team in college football, and I don't think they're quite getting the credit they deserve, despite being ranked. They're ranked number 3 now, but I don't think that people are talking about them as much as they should be. They rank number 4th in the country in rushing yards. They rank 3rd in the country for points for, and they average 7.9 points against them. So their defense is absolutely lethal, and they're scoring 50 points a game. I think both of those combined together just create such a dangerous team.
Yeah, you can't deny that Ohio State's a great team. I can't pick Ohio State. I got to go with LSU. They're number 1 in the polls this week, and I think that's right. Looking at their schedule, I mean, they have 3 wins against top 10 opponents. They beat Texas in week 1. Then they went on to beat Auburn and Florida. I mean, their schedule is just so difficult, and they've got Joe Burrow leading them. And he's the Heisman frontrunner in my mind. I mean, with 2 out, it's difficult, but he looks great. Their offense looks great. I will say, you're talking about defense. LSU is a little weaker on the defensive part, but when you're scoring in 50-plus points a game, you don't really need one.
Yeah.
But going on your Ohio State take, the one issue I have with Ohio State is you're looking at the Big Ten, where you can argue it's a good division, but they're all playing each other, and I don't think there's any standout team besides Ohio State. I think it's Ohio State and the rest of the field. Versus the SEC, you've got LSU and you've got Alabama. You've got really good teams that can compete to both be in the playoffs. So I think that with that going on, that LSU is not only in the harder division, but they're proving themselves more than Ohio State is.
See, and I actually disagree with that because the SEC, I think over the past couple of years has really kind of lost its competitiveness because you have the really great teams who are always great, and then you have the mid-tier teams who are in the SEC who are normally really good, but this year, I would say it's a down year definitely for the mid-tier teams. So, teams like Missouri and South Carolina, Ole Miss, I think it's a lot weaker of a division. So I think you have LSU and Alabama, 2 best teams in the SEC, and then Georgia is kind of fluctuating. They're off and on.
That South Carolina game, it's tough to bounce back.
Yeah, and then after that, I think you have nothing. Where Ohio State, they still have Penn State, Wisconsin. I mean, these teams are top 10. Iowa's always tough. Minnesota's now getting up there. The Gophers. So I think that the Big Ten is actually, I would argue that it's a lot more competitive than the SEC is in terms of who they're playing. And Ohio State still has a matchup with Penn State, and that's a potential, 3 versus the number 5 team in the country. And I think Ohio State has just absolutely been dominating the field. Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, I agree. I think he's the Heisman frontrunner, but Justin Fields, come on, we're talking about a transfer who just comes into this program. He's thrown for 1,700 yards. I mean, he's just been complete takeout. He's the 2nd leading rusher on the team behind J.K. Dobbins, who not enough people are talking about him. He has 1,100 yards on the season. I mean, this Ohio State offense, I think, is so overpowered. And then not to discredit their defense, who gives up 7 points to a Wisconsin team, and they have the best defensive player in the country in Chase Young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you were talking about earlier with Oklahoma having lost, how their playoff hopes are pretty much scrapped at this point. I think that's one of the issues with the playoff system. This is kind of changing things up a little bit from our main topic, but you look at the playoffs, you got 4 teams, and every team pretty much needs to go undefeated. And I feel like at the beginning of the year, the committee's like, you know what, we're going to pencil in 2 SEC teams no matter what.
Right.
And you're mentioning how the SEC is getting weaker and weaker throughout the years. And you got teams like Alabama, which Jacob's going to talk about in a little bit, but teams like Alabama, they're playing high school JV teams for the first 6 games of the year. And then they're showing up undefeated when they start playing real SEC teams so they can just wander into the playoffs.
Which is why I think it's important that, for LSU's case, that they have been battle-tested. Although I will say Ohio State, with beating Wisconsin and beating them handily the way they did, completely just destroying them, I think was great. And I think it was really big for them. But on the same side, will Ohio State be able to even win the division and get to the Big Ten? Because they have a matchup with Penn State, who I think also looks great this year. And I think LSU, they have to play Alabama. I think LSU will win that game. Yeah. And I think they have an easier chance, but I think Ohio State is the most complete team in college football this year. Yeah,
and just before we throw it over to Jacob, none of us are talking about Clemson. And Clemson, 2-time defending champs. And the reason I don't like talking about Clemson is they're in the ACC. The ACC is a basketball conference. And then meanwhile, it's similar to Alabama, where they're not only is their preseason, or not preseason, but their out-of-conference schedule easy, their in-conference schedule is easy. I just don't like seeing them in the top 4. It always bugs me because I think that they can, same thing with Alabama, they're a guaranteed right into the playoffs.
I agree.
And when there's only 4 teams, you should be picking the 4 best
And
teams.
I think that's disrespectful to, the Penn States and teams like that who have showed themselves and proven themselves a lot more than Alabama has, or Clemson. But again, Clemson and Alabama have that brand.
Yeah, exactly.
But, Jacob, you have a different take. What are your thoughts on this? Who's the most dangerous college football team?
Yeah, so I think that Alabama, you have to pick Alabama right now. They're undefeated. Yes, Tua's been injured, but really, as Raymond on Sided said, Bama until someone beats them. If nobody's beaten Alabama yet, I don't know how you can pick someone else. You mentioned that they had a weak non-conference schedule, but when you're playing in the SEC, you're going to be playing quality teams basically every week once conference play starts. And we'll see what happens when they play LSU on the 9th. That will really decide who's the best team right now.
Yeah, I think the problem with Alabama is what I've seen is that their defense this year is nowhere near what it has been the past years, just because they're playing so many true freshmen, which
is terrifying.
Yeah, it's terrifying for the next for the next few years, and that's something you definitely need to watch out for. But their offense is still great. Tua is still playing great. But I don't think their defense is where it's been in the past. So I think LSU will be able to win in a shootout. But I think defense is so important, and you can have the debate what's more important, offense or defense, but defense still consistently always has to show out in order for teams to win.
Yeah,
and that's what Ohio State does. Like I said, Chase Young is the best defensive player in the country. Ohio State always has good defensive ends every year. It's been the Bosas, and then now it's Chase Young, who might be better than all the Bosas that have come by. But again, they gave up 8 points a game on average, which is just absurd.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous in the way that they can be able to combat that with a great offense as well, just making such a dangerous team going forward.
Yeah, no matter what, I'm really looking forward to this weekend. I think this weekend, especially LSU, Alabama, it's really, or no, that's not this weekend, 2 weekends. Yeah, it's going to be a real proving ground for the SEC and for the best team in college football in my mind. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Thanks for joining us.
From adversity, we rose. We made history and became pioneers, voyagers, champions, Jayhawks. And when our chant rises, haunting and hallowed, Jayhawks are telling the world what's near. Victory.
All right, we're back, and right now we're going to be talking about NBA teams and who you should build your franchise around.
Yeah, I think it was a website like Hoop Focus or something came out with something where a coach's poll of who would you rather start a franchise around, and I think the number one was it Kawhi Leonard or maybe it was LeBron James?
Yeah.
And so it sparked just a lot of debate, and I think it's a really interesting topic to talk about.
Yeah, because when I look at like acquired LeBron, they're old. They've already kind of done their thing, and I think that you got to form something around a young player, and that young player in my mind is Luka Doncic, where he came over from Europe. He played for Real Madrid in the Spanish Basketball Association, and he, as a 16-year-old, he was playing against full-grown men, and he was beating them. And I think that he's so proven, and lots of people show up to the NBA and they aren't ready. They aren't ready physically and they aren't ready mentally. And I look at him and I think he's ready in both facets, really. Physically, he looks great out there. He's such a great passer. He's a great shooter. Mentally, he has that clutch factor. And, I mean, have you seen his step back? His step back jump shot is incredible. Everyone talks about James Harden's step back, which is essentially him just traveling. But Luka Doncic, I think, has the best step back in basketball. It's unbelievable. He creates so much space, and then he'll create the space, but he's quick enough on his feet to think, do I want to shoot this or do I want to dish this off to somebody else? He's a very selfless player. He has the most triple-doubles for a player under 21 years old in NBA history. It's unbelievable. I just can't imagine what he's going to go on to do. I think that this is going to be his breakout year. He's going to be an all-star this year without a doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I think he's great, and it helps that he's proven, but I'm going to even go younger than that. I think if you're going to start a franchise and you're going to have a player to be that, that franchise guy, that just player that brings the whole city, the coaching staff, the fans on its back, and I'm going to go younger than that. I'm going to go with Ja Morant. I saw a play last night, if we can play the clip. I saw a play where a series of events where Ja Morant drives down. Oh, that's Luka.
Oh, that's my step back right there. Yeah, you see that.
Yeah.
Better than Harden.
Your play. This play right here, where Ja Morant, he drives in. That's Luka. Anyway,
here we go.
So drives down, ties the game up, and then the next play, he goes down, plays defense, and he blocks Kyrie Irving, arguably one of the best in the game right now, probably top 10, and he just blocks him like he's a seasoned vet. He played great. He's been playing great, and I think if you're going to start a franchise, you're going to start over. You're going to start new, have a face of a franchise, and kind of rebuild. You need to get someone young. You need to get someone who brings a lot of spunk and brings a lot of energy, and I think that Ja Morant fits the mold for that perfectly.
There's no denying his athleticism. His vertical leap is insane. I've never seen a guy that height jump over big men like that. In March Madness last year is when I really started to get to know him. I remember he had a couple dunks in their round of 64 games that were unbelievable. And he really put the team on his back. So it's like I was saying with Luka, it's nice to see that clutch factor there. The thing that I think that Ja Morant lacks over Luka is that maturity. Where Luka, he's won European championships before. He is really just a really put-together player versus Ja Morant. He played at Murray State, and this was the thing that everybody talked about how he played with Zion Williamson in high school. Or AAU, sorry.
Yeah.
And the thing that I never understood is why did he go to Murray State if he played with Zion Williamson in high school? Because every scout in the world was at that game. They showed up to watch Zion play. And for some reason, Ja Morant didn't stick out to anyone except for Murray State. And so then he shows up at Murray State and he's playing in, I don't even know what conference they're in. And so he's playing against non-competitive teammates, or non-competitive opponents. So I don't understand why he wasn't really thought of that high until he got to the NBA or until he got out of Murray State.
Yeah, well, so Ja Morant actually, he carried Murray State he led the team in assists and in scoring and in rebounds. I mean, he led that entire Murray State team to what it was to having an upset in the tournament. And his stats were actually great throughout college. He only played for 2 years. He's only a sophomore. His stats were great throughout college, but it was just in March Madness where everything's kind of started taking off, and he's been able to.
He
exactly.
Exploded in March Madness. Yeah.
I know, and they only made it through one round. He played 2 rounds of basketball, and everyone freaked out about him. But I believe he's been able to take all the pressure of being, number 2 overall pick, number 3, number 2, number 3.
Yeah, one of those.
And he's just been able to take that pressure. And his first 2 games, he scored 14 points and 10 points, and then the last game, 30 points. So I mean, if he can keep progressing just as it goes on, and as he matures and as he gets in the league, gets comfortable, I think he'll just be able to be a a force to be reckoned with.
Now, before we swing it over to Jacob, if we're talking statistics, I've got Luka's up right now. He scored 34 in his first game. Sorry, I'm looking at minutes. 34 in his first game, 25 in his second game, and 29 in his third game. Like, unbelievable scoring from this guy. And part of me also thinks that position-wise, it's tough to build your program around a point guard, like a 1-2 guard like Ja Morant. You need that guy who's more of a power forward, strong forward presence, and that's Luka. Because if you look at all the greats, you got Kawhi, you've got LeBron, you've got Kevin Durant. They're all strong forwards, power forwards. So I think that's why I got to go with Luka. But yeah, so should we swing it over to Jacob? You ready?
Yeah,
to
what are your
him?
thoughts? Who would you rather have to start a franchise with?
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to have to go with Giannis, the reigning MVP. Before the season started, all NBA general managers were polled on who they could start a franchise with, and 86% said Giannis. He's still only 24 years old. He's already had playoff experience, and he's a reigning MVP. I think that Luka and Ja both have good futures in the NBA, but if you're starting a franchise right now, I don't think that there's any question that Giannis is the guy to go with right now.
Yeah, the one way that it's hard to argue against Giannis, especially after last year. The one game I remember watching was when it was Bucks-Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals. And when you watch the greats, you watch the LeBrons, the Kevin Durants, the Kawhis, they absolutely take over in the fourth quarter. And it blows my mind watching that. And then Giannis, I couldn't even find him in the fourth quarter. I remember sitting there watching, I was like, okay, he's supposed to put the team in his back right now. He does have Kawhi Leonard guarding him, but when you're the MVP, you should be able to beat anyone. And so that was when I kind of lost it a little bit with Giannis, where I was like, okay, maybe he doesn't have what it takes to put the entire team in his back in that Game 7 when they need him most.
Yeah, you make a great point about that because Kawhi in the finals, that's exactly what he did. LeBron does that on the daily. Can just take a game over, and I think there might be a lack of that from Giannis. I don't know if I've necessarily seen Luka do that, and especially now on the team that he's on, there's a lot more stars than before. So will he be able to still be able to stand out and stick out with all those people? Where I think Ja is on a team that's definitely rebuilding and has kind of struggled a little bit, but they continue to rebuild, and I disagree with you about power forwards and stuff because I think if you want a franchise to start, I think a point guard is a great place to start.
Distributor.
Exactly. He's only 20 years old, so he's still growing. He's still just got a lot of maturing to do. But I think if you're going to start a franchise, you need someone solid. You need a point guard who can control the tempo of the game, and he's shown that so far. It's only been 3 games of the regular season. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. But
yeah, definitely. It's going to be, no matter what, all 3 of these picks, I think that you're in a great situation if you have them on your team. I kind of have some honorable mentions for myself. I got to go like Karl Anthony Towns, Ben Simmons. Like they're the young players who really have the whole team. Like Ben Simmons, no one's ever seen someone like him before. It's so exciting to watch him where he can't shoot. And this is a league where you need to be able to shoot. That's what.
But he's a guy where he can control tempo, and that's so important in the NBA. And that's why I think a point guard is really good, especially to start rebuilding almost a franchise and just kind of having the whole city get behind one guy. I think it's a point guard who can control the tempo of the game. If you need to play fast, he can play fast, and if you're a more defensive-oriented team, you can slow it down and play your style of game, and I think that's why a point guard is really important for this.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun revisiting this topic in a couple months going forward.
Yeah.
So we're going to send it back over to Jacob, close things up.
Yep. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Keep posting your debates and opinions on sided.co and tag us on Twitter at TakeASideKU. Who knows, maybe we'll even discuss your opinion on air. For Riley Ward, Max McElroy, Marina Saver, Caroline McRae, Emma House, Sam Ryder, and Josh McQuaid, I'm Jacob Polachek, and we'll see you next week.